welcome to tonight's live Path to Profit webinar. Welcome aboard to everyone new and veteran from across the U.S. and Canada, and a couple of you in the Bahamas. Welcome aboard to all of you, no matter what program you're in. I think one of you just purchased the property management program, so kudos to you, because that's also been a pretty hot button lately. It is a wonderful way to build a real big, strong business and complement what you've already got in the way of brokerage. In fact, there is a buzz going around. You've probably heard of it, some of you by now. In the world of Keller Williams, there's discussions of launching property management at the across the franchise system. Some individual franchises do have it. I taught at 500 and some odd market centers, and I don't know the percentage, but I've been to a number of them that actually do have it. In my market center, we set up a separate LLC. But in any case, pretty hot topic. So welcome aboard to all of you. For those of you who are new, you're going to recognize that you're on mute mode. Everybody is, except for me. From time to time, I will unmute you. Okay, but for the most part, you can use the question box to type in your questions. Okay, and we'll go over those questions throughout the webinar. It's usually about an hour, sometimes a little shorter, sometimes a little longer. It just depends on the content and the level of Q&A. Now, before we get into content, a little more housekeeping. Number one is always remember to please look for the email the very next day from Beverly, so you can see the updates to the platforms, updates to the content. For example, right now the tax strategies are being reviewed in light of the new tax plan. And of course, they're always going to be certified by a certified tax accountant. So keep an eye out for that. Also, she gives you this upcoming schedule, just lots of updates at the administrative level that you need to be aware of throughout your program. Real quick, on the event coming up in March, it's been another hot subject lately. We do still have seats, but the room block, guys, is expiring at midnight tonight. So if you were going to get a room at the Omni there for the March event, that's March 16th, 17th, and 18th at the Omni Champions Gate, just south of off of Highway 4, south of Orlando, just past Celebration. It's within shouting distance of Disney. There's a shuttle service, by the way, to and from the resort in Disney. We did get 1/3 off the room. The rooms are only $199 a night compared to, I think, to $299 or something like that. They also waived the parking fee. They made the parking fee from $25, $30 down to $5. They waived the resort fee, which is $30 a day. All that stuff they're doing for us. But the room block expires tonight. They didn't say that you can't get a room after tonight. What they're saying is they're not going to guarantee that it's available, and they're not going to guarantee the price that we negotiated with them. Also, if you're traveling by air, just remember you can use Super Shuttle to communicate. To commute between the airport and the hotel. You can use Uber. Uber's way cheaper than cabs. Okay, and I think that's pretty much it for now. If you haven't already got a spot, go ahead and reserve a spot. We've got some pretty neat things going on there. Obviously, we're going to be doing a lot of learning and a lot of networking. That's really what it's all about. And you're going to have a lot of opportunity to meet people who may actually be able to help you further your business elsewhere in the U.S. or Canada. So take advantage of it, build some relationships, and quite frankly, for me, I can credit a large portion of my success just to going to conferences and networking. Not to mention the fact I always learn something, numbers of things, and I always implement 3 to 12 things in the next year. It's just an amazing opportunity to grow your business. So in any case, those the updates on that. Now, somebody posted a message here. Okay, Daryl Murphy, would anyone like to share a room? So, and I do that too, guys. When I'm attending other conferences, I do share rooms. If anybody wants to share a room with Daryl Murphy, he's kicking butt. He's got like 10 listings, and he just started the program. So if you're just starting the program and you want to know how to get the 10 listings fast, be Daryl Murphy's roommate. Just go to the My Investor Services Facebook page, look for his post, and you'll see it. Or go on to the community site, and you can look him up there. Actually, just Google Daryl Murphy, New Jersey, and you'll find him. but I do that myself. I'm going to have, my spouse with me down at this event, so I'll be rooming with her. Otherwise, I'd room with Daryl. But great way to when you're hitting the hay at night, chew the fat, share the information, and you'd be amazed at how many long-term relationships you can build. So in any case, let's get to the content. Tonight's subject, we're going to focus mainly on foreign investors. And I'm going to show you some interesting statistics later on. One of them is that I mentioned before we were recording, is that Florida has the highest percentage of foreign ownership than any other state, okay, and more and higher than Canada. In fact, we have a lot of Canadians down here investing. I know because I'm part-time Canadian and I invest down here. We do have a lot of foreigners investing in Canada too, but not as many as in the States. In fact, you'll have more Canadians investing in the States than you have Americans investing in Canada. I'm just always looking for the best opportunity. The tax laws are different, okay, so you have to bear in mind that when we go over tonight. So let's just jump into it. First things first, when someone contacts you, which is inevitably going to happen at some point, as soon as people see that you're working with investors, you've got a website that demonstrates that, you've got a Facebook page that exemplifies that, they're going to find you. Okay? They call you up, you want to always interview them, just like you interview anybody else. You always want to interview these folks just like you interview anyone else, right? And one of the things you need to find out is the property that they'll be purchasing. How is that property? What is the intended use of the property? Is number one. That's why we have the big number one there. Okay. Is it a vacation home? Are they going to stay there just while doing business in the States? Is it a home for their children to attend when they're going to college? That's a big one. In fact, some of my first transactions were involving foreign investors who were buying homes for the children to live in while they attended college here in the States. And they would keep them and rent them out afterwards. And sometimes even do almost like an Airbnb. They would rent individual rooms to individual students, and their son or daughter would basically be like the on-site manager, so to speak. Our purposes mainly are for those who are investing for returns, for wealth and income, basically capital and increase in equity and increase in cash flow. All right. So in any case, we need to find out what the intended purpose is of the purchase. I know it seems obvious, but we need to be mindful of that. So in any case, there's every state has its own rules, which we're going to go over here in a minute. But I just want to preface is that that if you're interested in staying in the States longer than allowed by standard visa, you need to contact an attorney. This is kind of what this is talking about, because people are always confused as, do I have to be a citizen to buy properties in the States? Do I have to have a visa? The answer is no, actually. So in any case, you do want to find out what their status is, status of residency and status of citizenship, okay? Number one, you want to get that stuff out of the way, right? Now, here's a couple of things you really need to keep in mind. If some of you have relatives overseas and you're not an agent, you just bear in mind that they may be used to different culture, different standards, different procedures. In some countries, there is no such thing as a license. As a matter of fact, there's not even training. You just can put a sign outside your door and say, I'm a real estate agent, okay? In the United States, obviously, and in Canada, it's obviously more regulated. There's education requirements, licensing requirements. So bear in mind that when you work with foreign investors, you do need to educate them a little bit, because they may be used to something different than what they're going to see here in the U.S. or Canada. Okay, sometimes they're used to paying a flat fee. Sometimes they're used to do what we call bird dogging. They pay you a fee to find the deals. Well, you may need to educate them on how to work with real estate agents here in the United States. Okay. The other thing too is you need to be aware of is the exchange rates. Now I travel constantly, monthly between U.S. and Canada, so I'm always keeping abreast of the exchange rates. For example, I know when I'm in Canada, I use my United States debit cards to make purchases because I have a favorable rate exchange. All right. I do know Canadians who have U.S. bank accounts, and they play the market. They depending on what the exchange rates are, they can make purchases using cards from either of the two countries, right? But there are websites you can use, and just Google currency exchange rate, and you'll see all kinds of websites that'll pop up, and you can do the converter to see if you plug in the U.S. dollar, what does it convert to the British pound, for example, okay? So bear that in mind. We're gonna get through the simple stuff first, guys, then we're gonna get into the more complex stuff, right? Okay, real estate professionals. For all of you out there right now who have a license, first of all, kudos to you, because you probably discovered, like I did, it's actually a surprisingly good and easy way to make a lot of money, particularly if you work with investors. What really helps, guys, is if you do speak another language fluently. We have, probably of all the places I've been to, I'd say, Montreal, Toronto, New York, LA, San Francisco, and most of Florida have far more people who do speak a second language or speak a language other than English, or quite frankly, their native language is a language other than English. Well, this is a huge advantage, okay? In fact, it's one of those deals where you should use what God gives you to your advantage. In other words, it's not meant to be suppressed. It's meant to be expressed, okay? And you can, in terms of business, what that means is you can serve people with a common character trait, like native language that you speak, okay? Or common ethnicity, hobby, vocation, lifestyle, all kinds of things. In our example here, we're talking about speaking a foreign language. So for those of you who have foreign investors in the areas, and all of you do, in fact, I'll show you some stats here in a little bit, it may be wise to pick up Rosetta Stone and at a minimum learn to speak something like Spanish or Italian or French or German, or perhaps one of the two main Chinese dialects, Cantonese or Mandarin, Japanese. The list goes on and on and on. Dutch, Portuguese. Just maybe you have ancestry from a certain part of the world. Just learn that language, whatever it is, and use it to your advantage. For example, in most places I've seen in the United States, a lot of our foreign investors are coming from South America. I was surprised when I saw the stats because I assumed it would be mainly from Europe and Canada, and it's just not. People from, Argentina, Venezuela, Chile, Brazil, Colombia, you name it. We do have a lot of foreign investors from China, and we do have them from the European countries too, but also the Middle East, Israel. Many of the Arabic-speaking countries. My gosh, strong ownership here in the States. So if you speak, Farsi, that's awesome because you're going to probably do quite well. In fact, I think some of you on the call here. In fact, I know personally. I know you speak Farsi and some other, perhaps other language. So in any case, sorry to ramble on that, but it actually is extremely important, and that's why I focused on that for a moment. Okay, the next thing. Now let's get into some serious stuff here. Foreign investors, sometimes they're just using all cash, and sometimes they're not. Sometimes they have to finance. Excuse me, 1 second. The reality is there are certain banks that, as a practice, will lend to foreign owners, okay, to foreign buyers. The requirements are often more demanding than what they would demand of U.S. citizens or Canadian citizens, okay, because there's more risk to the bank. One of those possible restrictions or requirements is they may need to put down more than 20%. They may need to put down 30 or 40%, okay, sometimes 50% FCB. They also require often a large reserve to be held in a U.S. bank, okay? Usually it's $100,000 or more. That's a pretty lofty restriction, but it's because of the risks of the bank. So what you can do is, if you really want to serve the foreign market well, particularly if you're in a large metropolitan area, where you're going to have a lot more foreign ownership. Again, Miami, New York, Chicago, LA, Atlanta, Washington, D.C., Toronto, Vancouver. Check with your local banks. You can even Google banks that loan to foreigners. Okay, and you can find out which banks are making loans to foreign owners or foreign investors, and then they'll give you their specific requirements. What I would do is I would get them in an email form that you can save, or particularly if it's an attachment that you could save in a folder. So when your investors call you, you can say, well, here's 3 banks I understand that will lend to foreign owners, and here's their lending requirements, okay? They also set limits on the amount of money that they will loan to any one individual. We often call this the loans to one ratio. It's usually based on the capitalization rate of the bank. However, when it comes to foreign investors, it's more of a risk threshold that the bank itself imposes upon itself. It's a policy, an internal policy, as opposed to a regulated policy. Loans to one ratio is regulated by bank regulators. When it comes to limits on foreign investors, those are self-imposed limits, okay? In any case, number of banks will lend, and this talks about the U.S., but the same thing applies in Canada, all right? In any case, let me do a quick pause here and check for questions. I think we're okay on questions. I know I just gave you a lot of information there. That's why I feel like now is probably a good time to pause for a second, let you catch up. By the way, you'll notice here it talks about establishing a line of credit. If you are working with, or establishing credit, excuse me. If you are working with foreign investors, I would definitely encourage them to put some money here in the States or in Canada, if that's the case. Open up a credit card, perhaps a debit card. Establish credit, because that's going to help them long term. So when they will apply for a mortgage, it might make things a little bit easier for them to get approved, okay? So in any case, let's move on here. Okay, here we go, the legal stuff. And first things first, I'm not an attorney, all right? However, all this information comes from reliable sources. So you can kind of take this as the truth as far as what's required. So number one is, a foreign investor does not need to be a citizen or have a green card, which we mentioned earlier, okay? However, they will need a tax ID. And the good news is, to get a tax ID, you can actually just call the IRS. There's a number you can call and get a tax ID right over the phone. I know when I set up new LLCs, I set up LLCs all the time to put properties in there. I just call up online and get the new tax ID for that new entity, okay? Well, same thing here. There's a process you go through, all right? You can certainly go online, but I would always call first, or actually have your client do it, and go through the process of getting their tax IDs. We use a W-7 to be able to do that, okay? And that's really what you need, and that's true across the board. Now, going forward, we're going to talk about individual state requirements. We're not going to get into the details, but I want you to understand that every state could have its own unique set of requirements. Now, if you notice here, let me just go back up here real quick. There we go. What should I expect when my first meeting room for the real estate agent? This is for all of you out there who are licensed. Okay, this is what we're telling the foreign investors to look for. A lot of foreign investors, unfortunately, historically, have relied on family members to do a lot of the legwork for them. They'd have a family member here in the States, and they would say, well, you live there, you go ahead and make the contacts, you find a realtor who knows what they're doing and help me invest in real estate. And the challenge is you know as well as I do, historically, most agents are not trained to work with investors, let alone foreign investors, okay? So the good news is, going through the program that you're in, you can put your profile out there on the community site, number one. Go on Facebook, not only like and follow the My Investment Services Facebook page, but also The Association of Investor Agents is theirs for you to use also. So make sure you follow and like that, because that's what people are Googling to find out who can they work with. Okay. And in there, you could make sure, like on the community site, make sure in your profile that you put some language in it that says, I speak Cantonese, I speak Portuguese, I speak Italian, whatever the case is. Make sure you put that out there, and the fact that you do specialize with foreign investors. Okay. Any case, at their first meeting, really what they're looking to figure out is, can they work with you? A lot of times you're going through a family member who speaks the native language and English too, in this case. So usually what they're looking for is, can they work? Do they feel comfortable working with you? Honestly, that's really all they're looking for at first contact. And do you seem like you know what you're doing? Can you get access to properties that they can purchase? Okay, next thing is, will they need to hire an attorney? There's no law that says they have to, but I will tell you, I'll be the first to tell you. I would recommend to any of my foreign investors, and I do, that they certainly work with an attorney. And the good news is when you locate lenders who will lend money to foreign owners, they often will have attorneys that they work with, and you can just ask them for the contact information. Also, most of you who are agents are working in offices that are affiliated with a local title company, okay? A company that does your settlements, all right? Does your escrow for your closings. Sometimes they have experience working with foreign investors, and if not, they often know who to contact. So you can get a reference just from the title company that your office uses, okay? And that is kind of an important thing. I mean, you definitely want somebody who knows what they're doing, okay? Particularly if it's a more complex type transaction. If it's just a simple one property purchase, a single family or a fourplex, that's not that big a deal. But some of your foreign investors are coming over with some big, big dollars. I mean, I've talked to some of you, and you're telling me some of your foreign investors are bringing over, millions and millions of dollars. One person brought in $20 million to invest. Boy, you sure want to make sure they're in the right hands with that kind of money. You and the right attorney and the right lender. Okay. Okay. Types of property. Oh, real quick. Sorry. Let me check questions, and then we'll get into the next subject. So hang on one second. Let's see here. Okay, we got a long one here. This is from Bill Morrow from Central PA. Okay, as an FYI, if anyone is working with someone of the Islamic faith and they are borrowing any funds, there are regs regarding Sharia law they must adhere to. Familiarize yourself when that occurs, because it can be a little trying getting to the settlement table. Yeah. I know from experience that it's actually usually debt is not something that they want to entertain. It's more of a religious thing. I don't want to get into religion here tonight, but just know the people who are strict Islamists generally will not want to borrow money. Some of them will, okay, but bear in mind you may need to do a little bit of study, like Bill says. So thanks, Bill, for the insight there. Okay, all right, types of properties. Well, the good news is, for the most part, there's no restrictions on the types of properties that foreign investors can buy. They can buy, in the world of residential, like we have here, single-family homes, condos, duplexes, triplexes, quadruplexes, townhomes. Now, having said that, there are certain co-ops and things like that may have their own set of rules. Okay, they may prohibit foreign ownership for various reasons, but the bottom line is it's usually financial, legal, and financial in nature. It has nothing to do with them liking or not liking foreign investors. It's more about their own bylaws. In other words, they can't take the risk. So they have to have funding that comes from the states, things like that. Assets that are being collateralized have to be in the states, things like that. That's what I'm getting at here. Okay, let's see. How they title properties. Real quick, we got another question here, so hang on one second. This is from Bill again. There are Sharia compliant lenders. Yep, and Bill, I don't know any myself personally, but I know students have worked with them. So good point there. Okay, so when they purchase properties, when they're investing, I offer the same advice that I offer to domestic investors, which is this. We really encourage you to set up an LLC when you're purchasing investment property, okay? If someone's buying a home for their own use, obviously, yes, they can buy it in their own name. There's nothing wrong with that. And yes, they can purchase investment properties also in their own name. We just don't recommend it. There's more risk associated with that. So what I mean is, if you purchase a property in your own name and something goes wrong, somebody slips on the proverbial bar of soap and sprains their ankle, they can sue you for the medical costs. If you own the property directly, what that means is they're suing you directly, which means all of your other personal assets are now subject to attachment, okay? However, let's say you own the property in an LLC and someone slips on the bar of soap and falls and sprains their ankle, and they want to try to go for the gold, they can only attach what's in the LLC, which in this case is the property where they fell, okay? But they can't attach your own personal assets in a suit. Now, having said that, I'm just going to throw this out there because you need to hear this. There are attorneys who will do what's called piercing the corporate veil. If they can find a loophole in something you've done, like your tax accounting, where you commingled funds, so you used personal funds for your investment property or use investment property funds for your own personal use, they can consider that a direct line between you as the person and the LLC, which is the entity that owns the property, and the property itself. They'll pierce the corporate veil. So having an LLC is not exactly 100% foolproof. It does provide some anonymity and some liability protection, but only if you do your accounting properly, okay? So in any case, bottom line is I recommend for investing that they set up an LLC. There's other things they can do. There's limited partnerships, joint ventures, all kinds of things you can do. Trust, real estate trust, for example. But the simplest thing is just to set up a basic LLC. That's the simplest thing you can do to get the most bang for your buck, okay? Anything beyond that, you definitely want to get an attorney involved, particularly if they're doing joint ventures or partnerships, or if they're going to try to buy something from inside a domestic corporation, or I'm sorry, a foreign corporation. Here it is right here, foreign corporation. That could, I would definitely get an attorney involved in that. Okay. All right. The next thing is they'll ask you, can I pay cash for the property? Well, you better believe it. We love cash, right? Whether we're investors or agents, or any case, cash is always king in the world of business. Always has been, always will be. Bear in mind there is a requirement from the federal government called LCR, which stands for Large Cash Reporting. Large cash reporting requirements mandate that any transaction where there's an exchange of funds to the tune of $10,000 or more, or over $10,000, that has to be reported on an LCR report. Banks have to do it. You just have to do it. So if somebody's going to be paying cash and using more than $10,000, you've got to have that reported, right? In any case, just a small requirement, just something to keep in mind. All right, now there are specific states to invest in. Well, it's no different than what I would apply to domestic investors, guys. You just have to really do your homework. And you can see right here, here's some of the percentages. Check this out. About 5 years ago, well, now 6 years ago, statistically, 23% of the properties in Florida were owned by foreigners. 17% in California, Arizona, Texas at 9%, New York at 3%. Isn't that surprising? So in any case, one of the things I want to help you keep in mind here is we have discovered that foreign investors for the most part, do like the bigger, more populated areas. However, it turns out the percentage of home ownership for individual homes is actually more in the suburban areas. How about that, huh? So that foreign owners, for their own properties that they're going to live in, they generally like to be in suburban areas. For investment purposes, they like to be around the bigger, more highly populated areas. It sounds like it makes sense. It's common sense, but the data sort of bears it out, and you should definitely be aware of that. Okay, hang on one second. Okay, do they have to travel to the U.S. for closing? Obviously, the answer is no. They can assign you a specific power of attorney. All right. In other words, they can give you the legal authority to sign for them just on that particular property and nothing else. It's limited. And that'll allow them to not have to travel to the states to do the closing. They can, of course, assign that to an attorney, okay, to do the closing on their behalf. So one of the things you have to keep in mind is there's other costs associated with these properties, right? Like title fees, things like that. You always want to make sure you disclose all this to your foreign investors. It's not just about transfer taxes, proration of taxes and utilities and things like that, and commissions, and there's other things. In title insurance, they may actually charge you some type of an override because of the risk associated. There's different riders you can get, different, just like on a regular policy, insurance policy on your property. You can purchase riders. You can purchase riders for title insurance too. Okay. In any case, all right, let's talk about taxes, because here's where we start to get into what's happening at the state level. At the federal level, everything is the same. Okay. At the state level, the good news is at the federal level, it's all the same. At the state level, every state can have their own requirements. Okay. So there are websites you can go out there and find what are the individual states' rules and regulations and tax requirements when it comes to foreign ownership. Okay. The other thing too is at the federal level, there's different treaties between the different countries. Now I can tell you, between the U.S. and Canada, we have very favorable treaties. Okay, when it comes to taxes, very lenient, very fair, and very understanding. Because of people like me, who I'm a U.S. citizen and my wife is Canadian. Okay, we had to do a lot of studying to figure out what was our best position to be in. It turns out we didn't have to change anything. Exactly what we're doing is exactly what we should be doing. Now, when it comes to taxes, I want to kind of bring something to your attention here. United States is unique in one way. While most other countries will tax you based on your country of residency, so if you're a Canadian citizen, for example, in Canada, we pay taxes on country of residency. If we live in Canada, we're going to pay taxes in Canada, and only on income that we earn in Canada. Now, I just use that as an example, and that's actually true for most countries. The United States is different, guys. United States taxes on country of citizenship. So if you're a U.S. citizen, you pay taxes. But here's the big difference. The U.S. will also tax you on income you make anywhere in the world, not just income you make in the United States. That's kind of a big shocker to some people, right? And the reason they did that years ago is when we had more and more people becoming billionaires, and they were looking for tax havens, shelters outside the United States. A lot of them are in the Caribbean, the Bahamas, Central America. And what would happen is those countries, because of their individual laws, would keep their clients' information confidential. So a few countries will still not share financial information with the United States, which means, yes, you as a U.S. citizen could put money in foreign countries. You're taking a risk. What you're doing is you're banking on the fact that they're always going to keep your information confidential. But let's say one of those countries, and I'm not going to name them because I don't want to get myself in trouble. You can just Google them and find them on your own. But let's say one of those countries decides to redo their treaty with the United States when it comes to disclosure of personal information of a financial type. And you've got millions of dollars over there. All of a sudden, you're now exposed because that country doesn't care what like now they don't care what the United States laws are. They only care about their own. With the United States law, though, they do care about the other country's laws. And if you think you're hiding your money over there because that country currently won't share their information, you still are breaking the law. And if they change their treaty, all of a sudden you become exposed. You don't just get penalized and pay taxes on that year. You got to go back and pay taxes for all the years that you had money over there, plus penalty, plus legal fees. It is a huge, huge problem. And that's a whole subject in and of itself. I just want you to recognize the main thing here, which is this. The U.S. does tax you as a citizen on any money you make anywhere in the world, whether it's the United States or not. Okay, it's different than most other countries. So, in any case, sorry to ramble on that. In any case, let's just go ahead and let me check for questions here because I think I saw. It looks like we're okay. Okay, we're okay on questions. All right, so Foreign Investment Real Estate Tax Act. This goes back to, I think, 1980. Is it in here? Yes, 1980. What it has to do is with withholding income tax when property is sold or exchanged or gifted, transferred, or liquidated by a foreigner. Okay, IRS is going to take 10% of the proceeds, and the state government is going to take whatever their percentage is too. That's true also. If in Canada, it's also 10% for those of you who are Canadian. I learned that myself. They're all going to get their piece of pie. You just need to know how big that piece of pie is, and the answer is, in this case, typically it's 10%. But you have to know what the state's rules are too. Okay. So in any case, that's pretty much it, guys, for foreign ownership in the United States. People buying investment properties in the U.S. In fact, how many of you? Just go ahead and type in this. How many of you have already been working with foreign investors? And if you have any questions, let me know, or what's your experience been? Because we're seeing more and more of that activity. In fact, I've been invited to teach in a number of different foreign countries. They don't want me to teach them how to invest in their countries. They want me to teach them how to invest here in the United States, okay? Sometimes they'll mention Canada, but more often than not, it's in the United States. So in any case, what we're doing is we're going to be bringing them in and putting them on the community site so they can find you directly. We just need to have them go through a little bit of an education process first, because we're guaranteeing them that you're trained to work with them, and we're guaranteeing you that any investor we bring in is a knowledgeable, investor. We don't qualify them, but we don't want to just hand over to you any person who just raises their hand and says, "Yep, I want to invest." That doesn't make them an investor. That makes them a wannabe investor. We want to train them so that they're able to work with you, so it's profitable for both of you. It's win-win. They make great investment decisions. You make money helping them. That's really why we do that. So bear in mind, if you have clients, whether they're foreign or domestic, who really do want to invest and you believe they could use some training, remember, you can get $500 if they take one of the training programs, guys. As long as we know that came through you, you got to let us know that. MIS Beverly is going to cut you a check for $500. So that's not anything to be anything to sneeze at. That you can turn this into a small little. Well, just imagine if you sold one program every 2 months. I mean, that's 506. That's $3,000. That's a vacation, guys, just for simply helping your investors learn what you need to learn. Okay, so let's check questions here real quick, guys, and then we'll see if we can cover another subject if we have time. Okay, this is Siri. Hi, Siri. Long time no see. Hope you're doing well. Do we need to do any certifications to represent foreign investors? No, you do not have to do that, Siri. There's no law that says you as an agent has to have a certification to work with foreign investors. In fact, I don't even know. You can get a designation, but it's just And you basically take like a continuing ed class and you can get a designation. Most people don't have it though. It's not a requirement. Okay, Daryl Murphy says, the next time, oops, sorry. I think I missed the question. Hang on one second, Daryl, I'll get back to you. Here we go. The next time you go, I would like to shadow you. I tell you what, Daryl, you and FAFSA too, I never forgot FAFSA wants to also travel. At some point, I've got to go to London, England to teach over there. I was initially going to go in the fall, and I let it go because the promoter over there, it just didn't seem like they really were, quite frankly, it didn't look like they were very organized, and I just had too much going on here. But we will get over there, and I'll be glad to have some of you guys come along if you want to participate and learn and help out. I'm all for it. In fact, for those of you coming to the event in March, if you could let me know, just shoot me an email, let me know who you are going. I want to get a panel of some of you guys. So Daryl, I want to get you on the panel because you got 10 listings. FAFSA, anybody else that wants to be on a panel, let me know, because I want to put a panel together in our event in March and have you guys share what you're doing with all the other students. Because one of the hallmarks, one of the things we really enforce or are proud of is the sharing that goes on amongst the group. Bring the production versions of your marketing, even if it's on a computer or laptop in Word format or PDF format. Bring it with you, and we'll put it up on a screen and show people what everybody's doing, because some of you are doing a really good job of combining the different methods to achieve a higher synergy. I really appreciate that, because everything I teach you is taught, each individual marketing method is taught independent of the others. But the reality is you can certainly combine some of them to achieve greater results. I mean, it's a phenomenal thing, and I appreciate those of you who are thinking outside the box and doing that. I mean, perfect example is Diane Price and her son Justin from Hamilton, Canada, up in Ontario. She did the booklet and combined it with the workshop. And as I recall, I think her first one, I think like 22 people were there. I mean, I actually went there. I was there, and actually spoke for them. It was pretty neat. So in any case, come on aboard, be on the panel. I want to get you guys up on a panel and let you show off a little bit. Okay, so this is Siri again. Siri is asking, okay, if foreign investors wanted us to recommend properties for them, do we recommend residential and commercial? Well, Siri, you definitely want to interview them first. In part of the interview questions are qualifying them, so wanting to find out what do they have in terms of cash, what do they have in terms of credit if they've been approved for a loan already, or if they have an available line of credit, or if they know what their credit scores. And by the way, credit scores just don't apply to us folks here in US or Canada. People all over have credit scores, okay? You want to know what that is. And also, Siri, in the interview questions, try to get a feel for if they are if their intention is to build income, residual income, that would be rentals, or if their intention is to simply build more wealth through capital appreciation, well, that would be more, single family residentials, things like that. Not that multi-units don't appreciate, they absolutely do. But most people, when they're looking for capital appreciation, they're looking for the singles that they can more easily sell. In other words, you can sell a single family home more easily than you can sell a 10-unit building, So in any case, you have to, Siri, those are important questions to ask. So it's a case-by-case basis, as far as what they would want to see. Okay. Hey guys, that's actually, I think we're caught up on the questions. I'll hang on for another moment or two if you do have any other questions. We will not have a meeting next week. Next week, just to give you a heads up, I'm going to be at the annual RIA conference. RIA is Real Estate of Investors of America. They're in the US and in Canada, okay? And they're the largest investment club in the North America. Now, I've spoken at some of the RIA groups already. Over the years, I've spoken to a number of them. So I'm going on their annual cruise this next week. At their conference, they actually hold on a cruise. Now, don't laugh, but I've never been on a cruise before. When I go on vacation, I generally just want to get there and get settled and not have to be worried about schedules and clocks and calendars and things like that. But in any case, I'm going to be speaking. I'm going to be a speaker on the cruise. And what I'm going to do is promote all of you, okay, to all these groups. We're going to, all the leaders of all the REIA organizations around North America are going to be there. So just bear in mind, guys, in 2018, we're going to be starting to bring in a lot more investors for you guys. And you definitely want to be on top of your game and be ready. Build your profiles on the community site. Again, if you speak a foreign language, identify that. But in any case, back to this. Two things. Number one is get ready to deal with more investors because we're bringing them into you. Number two is no webinar next week. It's just going to be almost impossible to do. So I decided not to have one next week. We generally take 1 or 2 weeks off a year anyways. The next meeting after that will be on Monday, March 5th, 7 p.m. Eastern. Beverly, I think, just sent out the calendar, okay? So the 5th of March, the 13th of March, the 19th of March, and I can't remember if it's the 26th or 28th of March. I just can't remember. Hang on one second. I don't have that written in my my daily planner. How about that? So it was published by Beverly, so keep an eye out for that. In the month of March, the first 2 weeks, the week of March 5th, the week of March 12th, I will be back in the Tampa St. Pete area, okay? The week after the event, which is 16th, 17th, 18th of March in Orlando, the week after that, I'll be traveling up the coast, teaching in Jacksonville, Florida on the 19th of March, Savannah, Georgia on the 20th, Fayetteville, North Carolina on the 21st, Richmond, Virginia on the 22nd, and potentially Upper Marlboro, Maryland on the 23rd, which is my dad's birthday. He's in Alexandria, Virginia, and Upper Marlboro was just on the other side of the river from Alexandria. So I thought I would teach there because I owe them a class. After that, it's going to be Virginia through the end of March. And in April, it will be Virginia all the way through March 23rd. I'll finish up in Charlottesville, Virginia. From the 24th of April, through May, at least May 18th, May 16th, I will be in North Carolina. I just want to give you an idea where I'm going to be. So wherever you are, if you're near any of those areas, let me know. I'll be glad to come and meet you. The folks in Toronto invited me to their next workshop. I'm going to see if I can make that so I can help them get that up and running. Let's see, who was, Punta Gorda. If I can come down and meet you guys while I'm over on the west coast of Florida, that'd be great. For all of you in Northern Virginia, I'm looking forward to seeing you guys again. Any case, let me check for questions here real quick, guys, and we'll wrap this up. And again, look for the recording the next day. And I'll have Beverly, I'm going to give her this document, and she's going to I'll have her send it out to you in the email with the recording of this webinar. So, all right, final things here. First thing is, God bless you. Thank you for participating, giving me the opportunity to serve and to teach you. I hope tonight's subject at least opened up your eyes to the possibility of more income for yourselves by working with foreign investors. I recommend that you Google foreign investor rules for your state or province, okay, and download that or print that off. And also, if you speak a foreign language, absolutely identify that on your profile on the community page. Also, if you could, guys, let me know who of you are participating in the March event, 16th, 17th, 18th in Orlando, the Omni Champions Gate in Orlando. I want to know who's coming because we're going to have other people there from the investor world. So just so you know, guys, for those of you who are agents, we're going to be bringing in some dentists and chiropractors who want to invest and they want to meet you. So we want to know who you are, if you're going, who's going, because we want to do introductions and get you guys in front of these folks because they're connected with other dentists and chiropractors all over the US and Canada. So you definitely want to take advantage of that. But in any case, let me know who you are going. I appreciate it. I want to do a panel with some of you. And I just look forward to seeing you. So in any case, we're going to have a lot of fun. You're going to learn a lot. You're going to earn a lot. And you're going to do a lot of networking. So get ready to participate, have some fun, and help pump up your business for 2018. All right, guys. God bless you. Thank you. I hope you have an awesome rest of the week. And I will see you on Monday, March 5th. Okay, take care.